morning, good afternoon, or just plain old happy Saturday. My name's Tom Bakewell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lupus Foundation of Northern California.
Elizabeth Savage. I'm the Executive Director of Lupus Foundation of Southern California, and we would like to welcome you to the 8th Virtual Lupus Health Conference of 2024, and it's the first ever joint health conference between our two foundations, so very excited about that. And we're excited to host this conference, very happy you could join us today. We'd also like to thank GSK for being the sponsor of today's health conference.
But before we begin, we're also excited to tell you about an in-person and online fundraiser to help you with your holiday shopping. Tomorrow, December 8th, we'll be at the Kendra Scott store in Santana Row between 12 and 2 p.m., where we'll receive 20% of the proceeds during that time. So head on over to Santana Row and start or wrap up your holiday shopping with some beautiful jewelry. You can also go to our website to find more information on this and other great fundraising opportunities. As always, we want to hear your thoughts on this conference. So please be sure to complete the survey when the webinar ends. This is the only way we can hear what you liked and suggestions of what you'd like to see in the future. So let's get started. We've got two great sessions planned for today. The way I think about today's event could be seen as simple, testing and trials, but it's so much more. Lupus patients in general rely on cocktails of medications to help manage the disease. We'll be discussing a blood test that can predict the efficacy of these medications in preventing a flare-up in the following 12 months. While I've simplified this is really a powerful message, knowing that what you're taking is going to work for you. The second session will cover the value of your health data, both monetarily and as it relates to getting in the right clinical trials. Sadly, most trials fail due to a lack of appropriate participation. The better we can match the right patients to the right trials, the sooner we're going to find a cure.
So it is my pleasure to introduce, or our pleasure to introduce, our first speaker, Dr. Amrie Grammer. Dr. Grammer is the co-founder, president, and chief scientific officer of AMPEL Bio Solutions. The mission of AMPEL Bio Solutions is to bring personalized precision medicine to patients, especially those with autoimmune and inflammatory diseases. Our second speaker today is Dr. Martin Schneider, who is currently with the Stanford University Department of Radiology. He will be discussing how health data is and can be used to better match patients to appropriate clinical trials.
And in addition to our outstanding speakers, today we're privileged to have Dr. Roddy Tunstall, President and CEO of Health Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance, and a member of our board of directors. Roddy is here today to help patients with questions that need to be asked that might not otherwise happen. And speaking of questions, before we start, I want to remind you, if you have a question, please type it in the Q&A section at any time, and we'll ask them after each presentation when we have 10 minutes of live Q&A. We'll be moderating the questions, so you can type your question whenever you want during the presentation. Now, please join us in welcoming Dr. Grammer.
Well, thanks to you both, to the Lupus Foundation of Northern and Southern California, for coming together today and hosting this great opportunity with my co-speaker, Martine. I'm a scientist, PhD, became interested in immunology and autoimmune disease very early in my training, spent the decade of the Human Genome Project at the National Institutes of Health, and then with my co-founder, Dr. Peter Lipsky, then the scientific and clinical director of NIAMS, founded AMPEL Bio Solutions with a single-minded goal of translating all of the great research information that came out of the Human Genome Project for all of you, for the disease of lupus that can affect any and all organs of the body. We did that by developing the tools that translate all those expressed genes and developing the math so that when your blood is drawn, you can be compared against the database that all ancestries and all ages across the United States of lupus patients have been created to make a very specific profile for you, to let you know your likelihood of flare or not. If you're stable on your medicine, great. If you have likelihood of flare, a report that I'll show you in a few minutes that tells you what drug targets are abnormal, so you can discuss that with your care team to decide what's right for you. Along the way, technology has developed, in the last 20 to 25 years, and we were able to not only approach the passion, which was the autoimmune disease lupus, but to approach all of immunology and other autoimmune diseases. And you can find all of that on our website. Everything we do is evidence-based, data-driven, predicts yes, no likelihood of inflammation. So for the lupus patient, yes, no likelihood of flare in the next year, as well as providing information on what drug targets are abnormal. And all of that is fueled by complicated math. When I started at the NIH, I was using and crashing Excel, using basic statistics as machine learning, supervised and unsupervised, and then adding on neural nets, what we call predictive AI, came about to do all of this powerful computation so that when a new blood sample comes in, accurate predictions can be made for each lupus patient. I will note that the type of AI I'm talking about, predictive AI, is based on supervised and unsupervised math predictions, very different from generative AI that you hear about in popular media that's all based on language models. Everybody's welcome to reach out to me, either on my email address or to reach out through the website. AMPEL works with all lupus organizations across the US as well as across the world. And we were thrilled last spring when the Lupus Foundation of America put this headline on their website. And we've worked hard this year in 2024 to make the Lugian blood test available in a clinical study that I'm going to talk about in a minute at sites across the United States. And next year, we plan to launch into concierge practices, integrated delivery networks, and we hope and aim to be covered by Medicare, turning the corner into 26 and 27. So all of you know that today, there's really no way to make an accurate prediction of whether a patient is stable on their medicine or not. All of the clinical care tests, for the most part, are measuring autoantibodies, complement, symptom evaluation. This hasn't changed much in a very long time, and it leads to a trial and error approach. And as all of you know, often taking years, if ever, before a lupus patient gets onto a drug regimen that works. What AMPEL's blood test addresses is staging. Where is the patient compared to all other lupus patients in the United States across ancestry and ages? Is the patient stable on their medicine? And what are the abnormal drug targets? You'll see turning the corner to late 25 and 26, we'll be adding a mobile app that we validated in a clinical trial that keeps the patient in touch with the doctor. And from the patient-reported outcomes that are now filled out by paper in the future will be measured by the mobile app, will predict whether a Lugian blood test is needed at that moment. And then this is a cartoon image of the Lugian report. I'll show you some actual reports in a minute, indicating an individual's genomic fingerprint, what are the drug targets that are on or off, and what's the severity score and the likelihood of flare. The biggest problem in lupus, and Tom touched about this in the beginning, is heterogeneity. Not every patient will respond to every drug that's used in the lupus arena. And I'm indicating this by showing groups of people with different colored symbols, orange, green, and purple, and showing you a visualization of AMPEL's approach to being able to predict flares and drug options, which is looking not at inherited DNA, which never changes, but looking at expressed genes, the RNAs that can be often on 20,000 to be exact in every cell of the body. This is a lot of information, big data, and exactly why the complicated math, the machine learning, the predictive AI, and cloud computing is fully necessary. Here I'm showing you about 1,500, the 25,000 lupus patients that AMPEL's looked at to date. Every up and down is one lupus patient, and I'm showing you the three groups, orange, green, and purple as examples here. And you can see different patterns as I indicated in the cartoon of the Legion report. Every parallel is one of AMPEL's tools that groups the expressed genes, the RNAs, by drug target. 32 to be exact, across every ancestry in the United States, every age group, and both women and men. And I'm going to show you what the report looks like in a minute. The genomic fingerprint, so this pattern of blue and red, indicates likelihood of inflammation or likelihood of flare, as well as abnormal drug targets. I like music and art, and I like to think about the idea that without AMPEL's genomic platform, then indicating here by PRISM, from the outside, often many lupus patients look the same. But by putting the blood and the gene expression through the prism of AMPEL's genomic platform of RNA analytic tools and predictive AI, we could separate lupus patients into individual subgroups and be able to tell likelihood of flare and abnormal drug targets. So in the last 5 minutes of my talk and in the last few slides, I'm going to walk you through real reports that doctors and patients have received this year through AMPEL's clinical study called RELATE. You can find it on the AMPEL website, and you can also find this on clinicaltrials.gov. So the way the report, similar to the cartoon, is showing an individual patient, whether they're stable, I showed blue before, here the green zone, or not. If the patient is in the red zone, they have a likelihood of flare, and then the doctor turns the page and looks at all 32 of the abnormal drug targets. This is what I was showing you on that heat map a few minutes ago, where I was showing you the blue and the red. And I just want to go back to that for a minute so everybody's on the same page. So in the report, I'm showing you one slice, one individual person, flipping it sideways, where green is stable and red is unstable. And each one of these lines showing you in this visual representation of a heat map is one of each of the 32 groups of expressed genes or RNAs that define the universe of lupus. So the report, again, is saying yes, no, inflammation or likelihood of flare, as well as exactly what drug targets are abnormal, either so physicians can think about some of the handful of FDA-approved drugs for lupus, as well as the off-target drugs that are commonly used. So you can see in this example, IFN is interferon. You can see in this individual patient that that's elevated. Interferon, as we all know, there's a biologic that's FDA approved for that, anifrolumab, that could be used. That might be the first line. You can see other things like TNF. Often the TNF biologics are used off-label, as well as a variety of other choices. Very importantly, the report is delivering to the doctor and patient very specific information about what drug targets are abnormal, so a discussion can occur with the care team to consider what therapeutic options might work for an individual. We call this personalized decision support. Here I'm showing you two different lupus patients and showing you one on the left where you could see the individuals in the green zone. This means they're stable on their medicine, and we have longitudinal data that says if an individual is in the green zone, stable on their medicine, they have a low likelihood of flare for the next year. And if the physician and the patient turn the page, you can see that all 32 of the drug targets that define the universe of lupus are normal. The other patient on the other side of the screen is in the red zone, and this is what I showed you a minute ago, and then showing you all of the 32 different drug targets. And in this case, interferon is abnormal. This may indicate the FDA-approved biologic anifrolumab, as well as a number of other drug targets, some where there are drugs that are used off-label, and some things for physicians and the care team to consider in the future. Here I'm just zooming in on two different reports. So again, showing you one where interferon pathway is abnormal. And this individual, of course, is in the red zone with likelihood of flare. And you can see that there's another individual also with a likelihood of flare where interferon is normal, but plasma cells are abnormal, indicating another one of the FDA-approved biologics for lupus called anifrolumab. So to recap, AMPEL's report at the end of the day delivers two important things to those living with lupus and their care team. Yes, no, stability on their medication, which means they have a low likelihood of flare for the next year. And we have a great number of publications that you can find on the website that led us to this conclusion, including longitudinal data that if an individual is in the green zone, they have low likelihood of flare for the next year. In addition, if they're in the red zone, likelihood of flare, here are two examples of patterns showing the abnormalities in all of the 32 gene groups, express genes, RNAs that are abnormal and define the universe of lupus. One individual living with lupus whose interferon is abnormal and anifrolumab may be a great choice, and the other where plasma cells in it is abnormal, and the care team may consider belimumab. My last slide just showing where Lugene has been available across 2024 in high volume practices across the United States, concierge practices, and we'll be launching into these in the first half of 2025, as well as integrative delivery networks. We're in negotiation with them for coverage across all of their patient groups. And we're already in discussion with Medicare for coverage of Lugene. Expect that in 26 or 27. In addition, we work with a wide variety of pharmaceutical and biotech companies. You can find all of the projects and the papers that we've worked on the website, including UCB. And as everybody knows, they just had a successful phase 2 in lupus. To wrap up, I've showed you information about the Lugene blood test that predicts if an individual is stable on their medication or they have a likelihood to flare. If they're likely to flare, what are the drug target abnormalities? So patient and care team to discuss options to change therapy. In the future, we'll be bringing our medically validated mobile app with all of the patient-reported outcomes that are currently filled out in the doctor's office, being asked over the span of the week in the mobile app. This will be a great companion for the blood test and also be a way that those living with lupus will be able to communicate both with AMPEL and with their care team. With that, I'd just like to thank all of those at AMPEL and all of our collaborators in the US and across the world that have led us to this moment of launching Lugene, the blood test for those living with lupus. And I look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grammer. Thank you also for giving the comparison of the two lupus patients. You know, a lot of times the presentations give generic information. I really appreciated seeing the two side by side. It's very interesting. Now we want to open up to the questions and answers. Please feel free to put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A. We'll try to get as many as we can live. Feel free to ask additional questions while we are speaking. But if we don't get them through live today, we will email the answers. So if you do put in a question, we don't get to it for Dr. Grammer, then we'll be sure to follow up.
So we have a few questions already in the chat. Some, Dr. Grammer, you've touched on when you talked about personalized decision support. These two questions relate a bit to that. The first one was, how can Lugene help physicians tailor treatments to individual patients? If you can speak a little bit more on that one.
Thank you, Tom. So when we developed what I, in a cartoon, showed as the PRISM, or the AMPEL genomic platform, we looked at all 20,000 expressed genes in every cell of the body. My brother's a lighting designer, so I like to make the analogy that looking at our bodies from the outside is looking at a concert on stage or a play. But just looking on stage at the effects of the light, you can see the sun on my face right now, we can't tell what all the on and off switches are. AMPEL developed the tools to group all the expressed genes by drug targets. And all of those drug targets have to do with the immune system. We use math to reduce to the 200 groups of genes that define the immune system and inflammation. And then by using test and validation with the over 25,000 living with lupus of all ancestries and ages, narrowed down to what I showed you today, which is a lockdown Lugene blood test with 32 rows. I showed that to you on the cartoon heat map, as well as on the report. Each of which you can think of a light board as being on or off. And that's what we read out on the report. So a physician and the patient and the family can look at that. Some of them may be very clear, like the interferon is abnormal. That's very straightforward. There's an FDA-approved drug for that, anifrolumab. Alternatively, if plasma cells are abnormal, the B cells that secrete autoantibody, Benlysta may be a great option for that. But there are also 30 other tools, some of which I called out. For example, often TNF biologics are used off-label. AMPEL published a study earlier this year looking at open and closed insurance claims, and TNF biologics are very commonly used. So we're hopeful, and we've gotten feedback both from individual patients, advocacy groups, as well as physicians, that they wanted to see all 32, even if there weren't obvious drugs that address them right now, so they could use that information in their discussion as new information becomes available.
Thank you. Thank you. The second question I think has already been discussed, but I'm going to read it anyways. And if there is more to this, the person that put this question in, please ask more. But it's, is Lugene accessible to all healthcare providers, or is it primarily available in specialized centers? And I think you covered that one pretty thoroughly. So I'm going to pass on that one unless the person wants to ask a clarifying question around that.
And maybe I can just make a
Sure.
comment, Tom.
Sure.
What the slide that I brought up of all the centers that Lugene has been available throughout 2024 is on the website. I also invite people to contact me on my email or info@ampel.org. We launched Lugene in a clinical study, very purposely at locations, high volume sites across the United States of all demographics, ancestry, economics, as well as age and representation. And our goal is to continue that with the launch in the concierge practices in 25, the integrated delivery networks, and working on the Medicare coverage, which we've received feedback to expect in 26 or 27.
Good, thank you. So we've got quite a few questions. A couple I'm going to struggle with some of the words, but this one I'm going to give a bit of a disclaimer too. As with every product company, product roadmaps are in most cases proprietary information. So I'm not sure how specific Dr. Grammer can get into answering this one, but the question is, what are the next steps in the development of Lugene and how might it evolve in the coming years?
Great question. So Lugene is a CLIA certified test. It's gone through the regulatory and it's locked down. So Lugene is a commercial test and will be consistent and will not be changing because it is a commercial test. So I said that a little clumsily, but Lugene is what Lugene is, and everybody can see on the website and with the publications all of the data that's led us to this moment, and that's all publicly available. Also welcome individuals living with lupus, as well as physicians, scientists, and scientists reaching out for discussion.
Thank you. Now, everyone, it's the holiday season, so bear with me with my pronunciations coming up on these questions. Why anfrolumab not effective in lupus nephritis in spite of reducing CD163, but not proteinuria?
So that's a very scientific question, really more aimed for somebody in drug development or, the maker of that medication. So Lugene is not addressing mechanisms of drugs. Lugene is predicting whether the target of the drug is abnormal or not. So for example, the interferon pathway is the target of anifrolumab.
Great, thank you. And the last question thus far is, can new research predict clinical outcomes or only pharmacology responses?
Again, that's really outside of my purview and would be better directed to somebody on the scientific and medical advisory board of your two organizations.
Got it. Are there any last questions coming in for Dr. Grammer?
Tom, if I may, I have a few questions.
Absolutely.
So first of all, thank you, Dr. Grammer, for such a wonderful presentation. In addition to being a physician, I'm also a patient advocate. So I'm going to ask you a few questions from the patient perspective.
Sure.
So for somebody who doesn't know about this test, how should a patient approach discussing this with their care team?
Great question. So the first thing is to go to AMPEL's website. I'm very open to them reaching out to me directly. I provided my email. They can also email info@ampel.org. So all of the information that I provided today is available on the website or on the publications. And I would suggest first individuals see if they're near any of the sites where Lugene is currently part of a clinical study and approach that site to see if they can be involved. And then secondly, to talk to their care provider, to point them to AMPEL's website if they wanted to reach out, speak with me or one of the team first to get more information before they speak with their provider. Very open to that.
Thank you. A second question I had was, how often should this test be done to detect the likelihood of a flare?
That's a really great question. And we published the scientific paper 1 year ago in Genome Medicine. That is the basis of that claim. How we had longitudinal data. So the same individual living with lupus across a period of time, actually up to 18 months. and showed very conservatively that if an individual was in the green zone, they did have a low likelihood of flare. Scientifically, that's based on math and intercalation of all of the scores of each one of the 32 RNA gene groups. And all of that information is in the publications, and very happy to talk about that further.
Wonderful. And my last question was about the mobile app. So is this meant for the patient or for the care team?
Both.
Okay.
So the mobile app Lupro was validated in a clinical phase 4 clinical trial where there were different groups, some individuals receiving short-lived prednisone that wears off 4 to 6 hours, other receiving long extended release prednisone called Reos, and looking at all of the different outcomes. So it is filled with all of the papers that patients fill out in the doctor's office. We asked them over a span of weeks, compared paper and the mobile app, and narrowed down to a small number of questions that routinely are able to predict if an individual is likely to flare. That way, the doctor and the patient would receive an alert. The physician and the care team may choose to order the blood test even before the individual comes into their office, get the results back, maybe even do telemedicine or change the medicine based on the result of the Lugein blood test.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that wraps up the questions. Great questions. Thank you for the answers. And what a wonderful presentation. Thank you very, very much. So
Well,
now,
thanks to you both.
now it's our pleasure to introduce our second speaker of the day, Dr. Martin Schneider of Stanford University. So welcome, Dr. Schneider.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, let me just start the presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, the goal of this presentation is that you get a better understanding of the value of your health data. And I mean, Amrie already gave a great presentation how health data can be used to be more targeted. And I start from the beginning why I got interested in that specific topic. So a little bit about myself. So I'm originally from Germany. I did my MD in Germany. I did my PhD in biomedical engineering in Switzerland. And then I joined the Department of Radiology here at Stanford as a postdoc. And my PI was Dr. Gambier. He was a great visionary with precision health. But after he passed away, I joined another lab and had a little bit more time to explore the startup world here at Stanford and how you can improve healthcare from a business perspective. And I was attending a blockchain event and they were talking about data and privacy. And I thought, yeah, okay, data privacy, this sounds like health data. So I put into my smartphone and wanted to know the value of health data. And Google showed me a billion-dollar market. And I was thinking, okay, that's great. I used to tell patients your data are safe and confidential, but it looks like somehow the data are already out. So I did a lot of interviews, asked pharma companies, patients, healthcare providers. It's the whole thing is still an interesting topic. But what I found out, because again, I was in the same situation, I didn't really know the value of health data. From a research perspective, I had an idea, but I didn't know anything at all about the financial value of health data. And Amrie gave a perfect example how you can use health data to develop the latest drugs, which are more targeted, how you can identify the right patients who qualify for the right drugs. But this also, she showed in her slides, this requires a really thorough health data set collection. And right now, talking to many patients, I know that, it's very difficult for patients to collect their own health data. And even if they have their own health data, it's difficult for them to get an individual assessment. And on top of that, usually they even don't know what financial incentives are connected with their health data. So for that reason, we are, as you can hear, we are in the beginning of the journey. Because like I said in the beginning, I even myself didn't know about the whole market. And also when you go on the internet and you want to know the value of your used car, you type in the model of your used car and you get an approximate price range and other informations. You can do that with almost everything, but when it comes to your own health data, nothing shows up on the internet. And so, and I know for myself how difficult it was to get an idea, what is happening behind the scenes. And for that reason, I worked together with departments at Stanford, more specifically, with the Lupus department at Stanford. And we got an IRB protocol approved that allows us to evaluate the value of health data together with patients. So right now it's a research project only, yes, but we think it's a very important, crucial step to increase transparency in this space and to gain trust and also, educate patients how they can use their health data. And the first aim we try to achieve during that research project is to understand how highlighting the use of individual health data in developing better therapies can influence patient engagement. So again, it's all the points are very patient focused because we need the individual patient to work better with us, that we can accelerate drug development faster. And to analyze how knowledge about the financial value of the health data impacts patient engagement. I think this is also a very crucial part because pharma companies buy health data already. They buy de-identified health data. And some of the pharma companies showed me how it looks like when they get the health data. For example, take me, if I go to 5 different healthcare providers, and even if they can get all my health data, they wouldn't know if it's only me or if it's 5 different patients because they get 5 data sets. And again, they don't know if it's 1 patient or 5 different patients. So the only one who could provide the most valuable data set, the connected data set, the longitudinal data set, is the individual patient, him or herself. They have already all the legal rights to go to the healthcare providers and tell them, give me my health data. And for that reason, they can create the most valuable data set for themselves and also for other entities. So since pharma companies are already paying a lot of money for these de-identified data, and it's the patient's data, so why shouldn't the patient be the benefit from his own health data, also from a financial perspective? And this is a crucial part of this protocol. As soon as the patient agrees to work with us, we will approach pharma companies and ask them, so how much would you be willing to pay for this kind of data quality, or what is missing? So the research projects should really be about to show to patient how their health data is being used and how the value of their health data could be increased. And again, then what is the market value of their health data? Because we imagine if this is successful, we want, because also based on the feedback from pharma companies, they are also interested in a better system. They are usually not satisfied with the quality of data they get from data brokers who sell them de-identified data. That the patient should be involved directly. They should have the control over their health data, and they should also receive the financial value of their health data. And so, at the moment, it's a research project, but again, this is the bigger picture that patients, it's their health data, they should benefit directly from their own health data. And yeah, I already said it. So the understanding, I think, is also a better piece. I mean, Amrie also got many questions. So how now I can use my health data? And again, that's very interesting and very beneficial. And I think also patients in the near future should have a tool to collect their health data easily, that they can also look by themselves for the best treatment options. And of course, yeah, the financial value. If other pharma companies think they benefit from this health data set, so yeah, why not give this money directly to patients and not to a data broker in between? So yeah, thank you very much. Again, we are in the beginning of the journey. That's why the presentation right now is a little bit short. You can reach out to me. Again, the IRB protocol is approved. You can also reach out to the Lupus Foundation. Right now, the IRB protocol is valid at Stanford. Of course, we already sought to extend it to other healthcare providers, but it just got approved 1 month ago. And now we are in discussions with different partners. So how the questionnaire should look like. We also collect some patient feedback, what they would like to include. So right now we're in the refinement process, but I hope we will be done by that by the beginning of next year. And at Stanford, we could start right now. Then we might be able to extend it to other entities, but we will see. So yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to me or to the Lupus Foundation, which I want to thank you here so much for this, for supporting this project. And yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schneider. Appreciate your time. And we have a few questions. The first one, and I've seen this, and it is a very cool app. There's a request for access to the mobile app, and I know you have a link for that. If you can share that, or if you want us to provide that after the conference, happy to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, right now we have a prototype of the app, yes, available, but this is still part of the refinement process. So we have to decide how to approach this next, because Stanford already has also an app, but the external app would be interesting if we go beyond Stanford. But right now, reaching out via email would be the best way. I hope it's also okay if they have questions that they can directly reach out to you, that get connected to us.
Oh, without doubt. Absolutely.
So this is, again, this is part of the refinement process. And I think, right now the study will be relatively short, because again, we want to help each patient to understand the value of their health data. And after we collect and then reach out to pharma companies and ask them what is missing for the data set, what data points would they like to collect, and what are they willing to give patients for that information.
And we have been connected at LFNC. We've been connected with Dr. Schneider now for about the last 18 months, and we're going to stay connected. And so as this matures and develops further, you'll see links on our site about that as well. And yes, if you have any questions specifically, please reach out to me on that one. There's a couple more questions coming in. So the first one is, what are the primary barriers to collecting and sharing patient health data, and how can they be addressed effectively?
This is a very good question. I had that. I also talked to investors. What's the problem? Why is this not available yet? And the good thing is, the time now is better than ever before, because since 2022 there is the Data Liberation Day. Now healthcare providers have to give you your health information in a digital format. And if you go to the big healthcare providers, they already have APIs in place that if you have an Apple Wallet function, or on Google or Android, a similar function like Wallet, you can already connect to your healthcare providers and download the most, not the individual radiology scans maybe, but the reports. So you can already access your health data electronically. If you go to a smaller GP, general practitioner, usually I personally ask them and don't have the technology yet, and they tell you, yeah, we can only send you a letter or print it to you. So this will probably still take a while that you will get everything electronically. But again, the law is in place that they should, in the near future, provide you everything digitally. And having that option to download your health data, then also a third party could easily develop applications that it could be collected, stored in one place. But I think in 2024, the technology, especially with this law, is not the main obstacle anymore. It's still a little bit tedious, but the technology is there to make it much easier. I think the main issue, and that's why we start with that research project, is it's trust. So who do I want to trust my health data? And again, I can totally understand you right now. Again, if you put in health data, even if you have your health data, nobody helps you to get the value of your health data. Information-wise, maybe a little bit, but financially, really nobody wants to give you anything. I just know from other healthcare, from other foundations or entities, they just tell you, yeah, give us your health data, and we decide what we want to do with your health data. And I think that's why before we think about solving this technically, which could be done with enough money and enough people, so the technology is not the problem. But again, we have to work on the trust that you, before you give your health data, you understand what can you get out of your health data.
You know, I think when you say trust, I know when I talk about this topic with our patients, a lot of them are really concerned about security, so privacy issues, and I think that's being addressed by the technology, although that can be a double-edged sword. You know, technology is software, so that can be tough sometimes. But the last question that has come in, I think we could write a book on the answer of this one. Both Lupus of Southern California and LFNC, one of the things that we do is advocate for lupus patients at state, local, and the federal level of governments. But this question is really interesting. It's how can patient health data be used to strengthen advocacy efforts for lupus patients? And I know it can be a long answer, but if you have any thoughts on that, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So right now, I think patient advocacies are essential part of the healthcare journey, and what we with that we are not really trying to replace them at all. We just also think they should also benefit from health data which become available, because again, right now, data aggregators in the background, they benefit from the system right now, but they are not really in touch with the individual patient, but patient advocacy groups are. So, and I think one big, if this would work, one bigger idea is not only patients get benefit from the financial value, which right now goes to data aggregators, also patient advocacy groups can financially benefit from that, which would allow them to have more one-on-one meetings with their members and help them on an individual level, because a patient is not a number, it's an individual who has different needs. And if patient advocacy groups get access to that money, they can provide better service. Having the health data, they could, for example, recommend tools like Amrie has mentioned. So if, they could guide you in what direction, how you could better use your health data.
Great, thank you. And again, a huge thank you to you, Dr. Schneider, and to Dr. Grammer for great discussions, great presentations today. I hope everyone learned something new and enjoyed the conference. You know, if you want to rewatch this video, it will be available on demand next week. So watch for an email with the link. And again, please be sure to take the survey you'll receive with the email. This will help us find topics which are interesting to you and for us to know how the conferences can be approved. So for additional resources or questions, please visit both of our websites. Lupus of Southern California is lupussocal.org, and Lupus of Northern California is lfnc.org. So thanks for joining us today. have a great weekend. And from all of us, we wish you and your families a very happy holiday season. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.